So at first it looks like the tank and boosters of a space shuttle, but then you realize there's a Saturn V in the middle, and there's two sets of boosters and tanks, and a whole lot of nothing for a payload, but like it just, you know, it's a giant-ass rocket. And it's actually a terrible design. The thrust-to-weight ratio is barely anything. In fact, I believe, yeah, that's the vacuum thrust-to-weight ratio. The actual thrust-to-weight ratio at launch is quite a bit lower. And if I remember correctly, this will blow up halfway through launch. But somewhere I saw a concept for this design, and I decided I had to try it out. And did I really have two of the four boosters fail to ignite, leaving us stuck on the freaking ground as the thrust-to-weight ratio is not sufficient to lift off of the pad? That is amazing. I love this mod. It's not really appropriate for the type of demo that I was intending to do right now, but it is funny nonetheless, and I'm just going to let this burn through until the thrust-to-weight ratio manages to reach above 1 and we start taking off, which we're getting very close to, but we're not quite there yet. I love the meters per second is going down quite badly too, and the sound effect as those boosters attempt to fire and fail repeatedly. In fact, something else just... Yeah, okay, so this is the bug that this design, for some reason, at a certain point, it just... The control system separates from the rest of the vehicle for no reason. And now you get to see... Yeah, and we're in this little bit, and now it's gone, and now we're on something else. And if you look over here, you'll see that cluster adapter tank collided into a T-50 structural tube. Like, huh? For some reason, this particular design, it's only that design that has this flaw, but that design has this horrible flaw that it just won't work. Also, this is a plane that I made, and you'll see that in another video. And right now I'm just showing designs that I've had to give up on for one reason or another, and just some works in progress that will not go to completion. This is the KV-2. The idea was, as you might have guessed by looking at it, it's a small little, I don't know, prop. I can't think of how to describe it, but it's vaguely based on hello Windows error popping up for no reason and breaking in the middle of a file copy that was important to me. That's nice. I love when that happens. You can see this has some fuel cells on here. They were meant to provide enough energy to power the blades on here. This is with a double system. I forget exactly how I set this up. I believe 3 of these blades are on one of the rotors, 3 are on the other. They're clipped in the center. There's also a system somewhere in here that allows these to actually rotate on their axes so that you can give them lift at different angles rather than just through the up and down. At least that's what I thought, although looking closer it looks like actually that system is not enabled, so this just has up and down thrust and you have to fly it like a helicopter. It doesn't have anything interesting on the tail though, and yeah, it's just not... It failed for various reasons, the least of which is actually my inability to design anything with propellers so far. This is a work-in-progress design to make a ring ship, so you can see it's got a large payload fairing for the top to make that sort of ring shape, and it's vaguely supposed to be based off of the NX-01, which is why you can see that name there. You see we have one of the big survey scanning dishes on the front. I thought that looked neat, using the, the Mark II, the Mark II fuselage, Mark II crew cabins as the outer ring structure. So, nice windows, nice crew capacity. Yeah, it's just the beginning of a design that I'm not going to continue attempting. Related to that design, I was working on it a little bit more, and you can see this has slight variation to that design. You can also see that the discs that are on it, I don't quite like how they're put on there, but again, this is kind of just where I stopped for now. This one I might actually continue with. I do like the using of liquid fuel fuselage sections in between, less crew space, but looks a little better in my opinion, and the fact that I have a bunch of liquid fuel available on here, we can put nuke engines on this and actually have possibly quite a bit of delta V. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and stick one on real fast just to see what kind of readout it will give me. Only 1,000. Is it only 1,021 meters per second? Yeah, because there's quite a bit of mass here. Let me see. Is that actually reaching all the tanks, though? Yes, it is. So, yeah, that theoretically could do that, but yeah, again, I'm not going to continue the design. Again, with the futuristic sci-fi designs, we have a giant communication dish on the front of this, a small ring of places for people to live in, Kerbals, little... Oh yes, I forgot, the upside-down Mark III command pod. I believe this is the center of the whole thing. In retrospect, I don't know why I had decided this way. I guess because there's no up and down in space, but it's just a silly little beginning of a design that, again, I am not intending to finish up on. And yeah, just weird stuff. There's also the KD-1 Eggnose, which was obviously designed to be roughly based on a modern drone design, and again, did not work particularly well. You can see I've put some fuel cells in the nose, and this thing just has a problem with clearance, both on the landing gear, clearance on the ground and takeoff, and just flying and getting enough power. It did not go well. And neither did the variation where I decided to make it, jet powered. This just, it used a little less fuel cells because it was easier in that way, but it still overall just did not go well. And finally, for right this moment, this plane aptly demonstrates a bug in KSP where symmetrically placed rotational robotics do not function properly. And unfortunately, it also, despite having a thrust-to-weight ratio above 1, wow, I did not realize the thrust-to-weight ratio was quite that bad. Despite that, it's not actually capable of taking off that way. It also doesn't really look how I wanted it to look. I did have a design intent for this, but it doesn't fulfill what it needs to fulfill, and you can see I had to reduce fuel load in order to balance it properly, which, again, doesn't make it great. With the exception of this design, all of these, they're considered complete failures, and I will not be offering any downloads. This I do not have a download for, but it's also not necessarily a failure. Something I might continue working on. It has a very complex rear door system. It's actually, I believe, 4 separate door pieces that end there. And you can see I've used these cargo bays arranged with the doors partially open to form basically a larger internal fuselage, which also has a little extra, like a surface to load something on that's actually not at the full ground level. But I haven't quite decided if I will continue with this design or use it in any way. Right now I'm just leaving it where it is, and if I get going in a career mode or something where I need a cargo plane that's this big, I might try revisiting this. I'm not sure. While we're here, I'll give you a little preview of something that I put together for another potential video. This is a little collapsed rover that can unfold itself, in theory at least. I don't remember if it has power generation on it or how that power generation will work. I believe it does. It must, or else it's gonna die pretty much immediately. I believe, actually, you know what? It has a single solar panel somewhere on it, but this thing can, in theory, unfold and allow you to do some science. But yeah, that's a long way off from actually being tested and demonstrated. And finally, this was a prototype for a kind of stylized commercial airliner kind of thing. So you can see I used a Mark I cockpit angled down and an adapter to make this kind of different styled cockpit. You can see I've used the Mark I crew cabins along both sides. I've actually fit them just right so that they don't clip inside. And also, yes, there is a modded part in here, one of these portable containers, because, hey, look, there's actual cargo space under the seating, just like a real airplane. But I don't know if I'll continue with this. It was just a little demo kind of example thing. I kind of like it. I kind of don't. We'll see where we go with it. And since we're here, why don't I show you something a little bit silly. Someone posted a basically model plane kit showing a bunch of parts, a very simple selection of parts, and this is exactly the selection of parts that was given. Obviously it had one more fuselage set and one more set of or one extra tailplanes from what you would typically use. You know, normally you'd have a tri-tailplane and you'd have, you know, just the single wing, single fuselage, that sort of thing. But, you know, they put it together like this, so I decided, okay, I've got to actually make the full thing like this. And I just noticed that this even does include the little extra cap that is entirely embedded in the rest of it, and there's no reason to have that part there because it's completely invisible to the design and just adds a little bit of weight. But yeah, I called it the glue plane since essentially it's gluing a model kit together. It also only came with one nose cone, which, so there's no nose cone on the second one here. Not that it really matters with the way this is stacked, strangely. This thing does fly. If I remember correctly, I made a few modifications. There is a version 3. I really don't remember why I made a version 3. Oh, you know what? See the struts there? Yeah, because else it wiggled too much, I'm guessing. And even with auto strut, that didn't really help. Although it did lose the nose cone on the version 3. I do not know why. It also apparently kept this little interior piece, which is, again, entirely unnecessary. And since there were a lot of just showing things without flights, and only one significant flight, I figured I might as well actually take the version 3 out for a little ride on the runway. Why are you turning to the side like that? That was strange. Looks like it got more fuel flow in one engine for a moment there or something. And this does have a little I-beam down here to help protect a little bit against tail strikes, as this plane does not really have a lot of clearance on the ground. Ooh, and, well, it served its function by being blown up, although that wasn't exactly what was intended. And as you can see, it doesn't really have a lot of control authority in pulling up, at least initially. I believe that's part of the reason I kept the initial version around as well, because as you can see, it did not do a great job of pulling up there. And you can see there's some debris in the background here, some drop tank debris most likely, and something else over there. Yeah, there's lots of testing going on, as always, and I think I've shown that particular plane, but I'm not sure. In any case, get ready for death, because it's coming very, very soon. I did not mean to put the landing gear down. And there you have it.